what happens then.
Because it currently exceeds its rated capacity.
So if the intent is to lock it in until 25, 26 as a definite, then I would keep that language.
Yeah, I think what we had discussed was if we said just until it exceeds, then that would be canceled today because it currently exceeds its rated capacity.
Now that's that number we use there, that 2211, that's full-time students. We've got about 2,400 in there, but they're not all full-time. They translate into fewer than 2,211 full-time.
So we don't project the time between now and 25, 26 when the school would exceed its rated capacity. I'm just afraid that
We just don't know.
Right, so if we
could be above it before 25, 26. If you leave in there until it exceeds its rated capacity, and then you put that substitute language, then that resolves any concern that we have. You don't need the 25, 26, I don't think.
So you could just say to attend Martin High School until such time as it exceeds its rated capacity, and then at the end put and shall not resume afterwards.
Yes. That priority choice shall not resume.
Would not resume. So the clause is to read the full clause, and then if I'll stop for I did not want us to amend, so I'm happy to stop and have a discussion or to make it as a motion, and then I appreciate the superintendent and our legal counsel helping us work through what we've been working on for 6 weeks now. And so I believe what the complete clause would say is, starting with the third line of that motion, and to grant priority choice to the geocodes listed in Table 3 to attend Malden High School until such time as the school exceeds its rated capacity, currently 2,211 full-time students, as established annually by the Planning and Demographics Department, and shall not resume afterwards. So I'll stop there because I haven't made a motion yet, and I'm happy to come back once we. Thank you.
Ms. Wells, I got you down.
Making my head hurt. So right now, going back to this full-time student equivalent again. Currently, 2211 full-time student equivalents. In the plan, when we do all the rezoning, we're going to be, Malden's going to be projecting at 1,852
Yes, ma'am.
full-time student equivalents,
Yes.
right? So, imagining that everything stays the same, then you would have 360 slots, full-time student equivalents. That's how much space you would have.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And then in terms of projecting, I guess we don't really have a good projection out past, we're too far away to really project.
Lauren, we experienced a little bit of accelerated growth last year and this year. We were over 1,200 growth this year, 1,000 last year. So we seem to be trending up. For a while it was 750, 800, pretty steady. So it's really just awfully hard to predict. Some of it depends on, as you know, depends on what they do with sewer in that part of the county. Depends on how the economy continues, if it continues to advance or if it were to decline.
Okay, so help me. So how many students are in these geocodes that we would be giving priority choice to?
40.
242.
Okay. Not all currently, or not all in the age bracket, they would all be in high school at the same time? That's just the ones that are in?
That was a 4-year span that we used. Of that 242 was a 4-year span of students.
Okay, I guess, I think I'm okay with where Mr. Lewis ended up with that. I didn't quite, I guess I wasn't understanding the concern to begin with. So we're saying there's 242 students. When Fountain Inn opens and we make the shift that first year, we expect Malden's numbers to drop. It'll be something different, but our projection
Maybe
is
150, 153, if all of those in the priority choice chose to stay.
okay.
Is that right, Betty?
Well, I would roughly divide the 242 by 4 and
But
get,
ultimately, over that four-year
Yeah.
period, 240.
remember, we're also moving students from Malden High to Fountain Inn High,
That's the 150,
190, actually 193.
190.
So about 50 a year, roughly.
Again,
And, you know,
all
they don't
that's
come in little
incremental
even
for you.
groups, but roughly out of that group coming out.
Okay, because it almost, as we're having this conversation, it almost makes me hesitant to grant priority choice, because I'm thinking about the 250 students who chose to go somewhere else other than Malden this past year, for a number of reasons, but some of the families I've talked to left because Malden was too big. So I'm trying to get a sense of where is that going to put us, because what I don't want for Malden is, I don't want Malden to have the same number of students that they have now. It hampers the programs they can offer. There are a lot of things that students aren't getting because the school is overcrowded. There's no place to park. There's nowhere to add programs. You can't get into some classes. So I want to be sure that I don't sort of, you know, we can't make everybody happy, so we want to make the right choices for the community and for the school program, so that it can be as high quality as we can offer for as many students as we can. So, because of the rollout, the ninth grade, one grade at a time, the impact of that will be smaller.
Correct.
And I take the 242 and divide by 4, one grade level is what you're thinking. Okay. Okay. I'm going to write some numbers down here. I do want to follow up while I have the floor. I do want to say I do think there are benefits to making these moves. One is we won't have floating teachers at Hillcrest or Malden anymore. We will have the ability to add programs that right now the schools can't offer because they don't have room to offer those. And we are addressing what I've heard from a lot of parents over the years when they've said these schools are too big and we'd like for them to be smaller. So I would offer that. Forward progress is painful. I've had my own personal experience of my neighborhood being rezoned, and no one was happy at the time, and now everyone is really pleased with where they are. And part of that is because they made the difference to get into that community and do what needed to be done, and the other part of that is the district does a phenomenal job of pouring into all our schools to make them the best they can be. So I do think there are benefits that we're offering these families. So, okay, thank you.
Are you finished, Ms. Wells? Okay, thank you. Mr. Sutter.
You try to understand, this will take effect when? The changes we recommended will take effect when?
No changes will begin until school year 2021-22. That's when Fountain Inn High School, the construction will be completed and the school will open in 2021-22. The recommendation was to not make any student assignment changes until that year.
Okay, so what if we have, and I don't want to speculate, we got next school year, and then the following school year got rostered, then we'll have an open a new school.
So I apologize, I couldn't hear the first part of what you said. I think the key kind of these things, you got to speak directly into it.
Okay, sir? I will reiterate. We've got these figures here about changing students from one school to another. At some point in time, that's not what that says on this sheet right here. It says if I put it too close, it will be worth it.
Nancy.
Anyway, God Royster, we're talking about all these things that could take place are going to take place, all these students that are going to be moved.
I'm sorry, Coach, I couldn't understand. Just tell me again, and then I'll repeat it when I answer it.
Never mind, I forget, I give up.
No, Mr. Sutter, go ahead, because it's something we probably all need to hear. Please repeat it, Mr. Sutter.
Give up.
No, okay, I can hear that. Just speak without it. Just,
Royster can't hear me, I know I'm in trouble.
I can hear you right here. Just tell me when I answer it, I'll repeat your question.
Well, I really don't have one question, Dr. Royster. We're having all these figures here and all these things are going to take place.
Yes, sir.
What if next school year we have 400 more students added to Marlin High School? What if next school year we have 300 less students going to Hillcrest High School? Are these things still going to be in effect? Why am I making all these decisions now? Are they subject to change?
The only part that would be subject to change would be if in the growth you described, all of a sudden Malden just goes over its capacity, then those students in that affected area would not have priority choice anymore. They'd have to go to Hillcrest. And if the growth became so imbalanced, and Malden grew so much bigger than Hillcrest, which would be very unlikely, then we'd have to come back to you and recommend some other change. But it's very unlikely those two communities, as close as they are to one another, that one is going to significantly grow faster than the other. But it's possible.
So we still don't have any specifics. We have things that could happen or might happen or maybe will happen.
Yes, sir, and that's the best we can do looking this far into the future. So we have to have the population for the school so we can move forward with the programming at the new high school.
All right, I'll ask one more time. Why are we making these decisions right now?
Because the new high school opens in 2021-22. That program has to be finalized. They have to know not only how many students they're going to get, they have to be able to start working with those students that come into them. The same thing would be true of the students that are being shifted in the other schools. In this coming year, those schools will begin to work with those students about matriculating at their school instead of the one they're currently assigned to.
Well, then what we're primarily trying to do, we're trying to reduce the students at Malden High School and the students at Hillcrest. When we look to Fountain Inn, they've got 4 years. They've got the 9th grade 1 year, the 10th grade, the 11th grade, so we got 4 years down the road there.
Yes, sir, and the populations at Malden and Hillcrest will decline over 4 years. They won't all of a sudden decline in 21-22. They'll decline over 4 years as Fountain Inn increases over 4 years.
And why are they going to decline?
Some number of students from Hillcrest are being reassigned to Fountain Inn. Some number of students from Malden are being reassigned to Fountain Inn, and some number of students currently assigned to Malden are being reassigned to Hillcrest. That's the group that would have a priority choice to remain at Malden until the building reaches its capacity.
So that's 6 years from now, when it would reach capacity.
It might be in 3 years from now. It might be in 4 years from now. We just don't know. That growth is too difficult to predict.
At Fountain Inn, no matter how many students we have, we still don't have one grade there, right? The 9th grade, the first year?
In 21-22, yes, sir.
So it really doesn't matter about the growth in Fountain Inn because we're only going 1 grade at a year. The 9th grade first year, and then 9th, 10th, and 9th, 11th, and then 9th through 12th.
Yes, sir.
What I'm trying to understand is that the reason we're doing these things right now is so that the parents will know what's going to take place so they can decide if they want to stay in that neighborhood or they want to move to a new neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Sudduth. At this time, Mrs. Ball O'Connor.
To ask, if I might, going back to Mr. Lewis, I appreciate you giving a chance for feedback on what you're trying to do. The part that, is that better?
Yes.
The part that I don't understand is if you were to add, and shall not resume afterward to the end of the sentence, then the meaning of it is lost by then, because then you've talked about the number that will be annually established by the Planning and Demographics Department. So it sounds like you're going to annually review it indefinitely if you stick that at the end of it, rather than putting it somewhere where it stands alone with the move that you've tried to make. So that's just my suggestion, to say if you can.
Would you be more comfortable if it came after the FTSE?
Excuse me, Mr. Lewis, you can, I know you cannot answer that. We will address this, but you will just have to put this in a way where, when he gets the floor, he can talk about it, but you cannot sit there and have discussion.
Okay. Well, my interest is that it be very clear, and also part of what you're trying to do is clarify for the community, and if I saw "and shall not resume afterward," I'm not sure I would know what that means unless it specifically says again, "and shall not," and once that number is reached, then the priority choice will not, in other words, the whole thing has to be spelled out again, as opposed to just leaving it ambiguous what it means. That would just be my suggestion. But now, going back to just my interpretation of this, I thought at the Committee of the Whole, when I asked the question, that all of the siblings, well, first of all, those who are in 7th grade right now would still be allowed to attend Malden High School through graduation. Is that correct? If there's rising 7th graders, then they'd be rising 9th graders when Fountain Inn opens.
They would be at Fountain Inn they would be at Malden in the 9th grade in 21-22. That's the group you're asking about. I mean,
And you're asking
21-22.
about siblings?
Well, I'm asking about those students who would attend. We're talking about current 7th graders
Correct.
who would automatically, no matter what language we have in this motion, be allowed to attend Malden High School because they are rising 7th graders who are currently zoned there. Is that correct?
No. 21-22 would be the first year that 9th graders go to Fountain Inn.
Right.
It would be the first year that 9th graders newly assigned to Hillcrest go to Hillcrest. So, but assuming there's room that year, the choice is allowed, they could remain. Now, once they are in at Malden, it's been our practice to allow their siblings to continue there so long as there was an older sibling. In other words, if they're in if they go to the 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and in the 12th grade, they have a little brother or sister who then enters the 9th grade, they can continue their career out at Malden. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'd like to kind of specify what grade those siblings would be in, who would still be allowed to go to Malden from that neighborhood. They would be those that are 7th graders now who would enter, 8th graders now. I said that wrong. So current 8th graders.
So their 7th grade sibling, their 6th grade sibling, and their 5th grade sibling.
Okay, so basically that says we have given, in effect, all those years before those families have to make this move, once they start Malden, we're not making them move. They're there.
As long as they have an older sibling enrolled in Malden, they wouldn't have to move. Now, we're probably not talking about a huge number of students.
Once they get into Malden, they don't move.
That is correct.
Okay, so,
And if a family moves out of the area, we allow them to finish high school in that school as well.
okay.
Oh, that would be true of anybody that lived in the Malden attendance area.
So I guess, and as a comparison, and just to say, I mean, I know that this is always painful for someone to leave a high school they love and go to another. And my brother-in-law and sister just went to the 50th Hillcrest High School reunion, along with Mr. Hamilton, I believe. And the love and joy and passion that all those people that I've known, even in my own family and past, about Hillcrest is the same joy and passion that the people that I've known and loved to go to Malden feel. And I don't believe there's any way to detach one's emotions of love and passion for their high school just by giving a lot of sort of pros and cons, because there are pros and cons at any high school if we tried to do that. But one of the things recently that is very exciting is that I think Hillcrest has increased the number of dual enrollment classes probably faster and to a greater extent than any other high school. I mean, there are many things about it. The agriculture program is, you know, some say the best that we've had. We could go on that way, but the bottom line is this is a passionate attachment that we should not in any way discount when people have that. It can't be talked away by saying these other things are going to be just as good or better, even though I think we could do that in either direction. So the only thing I have to say is history for me as a board member when I represented the area in my own neighborhood, having to move the people who lived in my own neighborhood away from Hillcrest High School to Woodmont High School. And people were extremely emotional about that. They felt they could not bear it without continuing at Hillcrest as they had done and their family and friends had done, and they didn't want anything to do with Woodmont High School, and then proceeded to say all the negative things about Woodmont that they could come up with, and it was my neighborhood. And at that time, Lisa was in it, and Roger went down there with me, and you can remember a whole clubhouse full of people saying, not once have those people said anything since moving to Woodmont other than the positive things that they have enjoyed about that transition. And we talked about program. Well, there's an International Baccalaureate program. There are all these things that you will become a part of. But it was going with their community and their neighborhood that made the school experience what it became for them. But I had to make a decision as a board member that this was what was best for the district, for both schools and all the families concerned at both schools. And I believe that's what we're trying to do here, and have, the one difference is that they have so much time to prepare. And in the case that we had before, and maybe Ms. Varley can help me remember, but it felt like we had no time to really get ready for the change like we are doing now. It was like the school's going to open, and we didn't have a roll-up 9th through 12th.
No, we did
It was
not.
like,
It was
going,
went.
get
All grades
ready,
went.
it's done. And so the one thing that gives me some comfort is to say that we're, you know, any 8th grade student in those neighborhoods is still going to get to go to Malden, where they've got that high school energy directed and most ready for that experience, and their siblings. And we've opened up this priority choice area, which I've never seen the district recommend or agree to, or the board do. And so I do feel like we have heard the angst and the difficulty of letting go and are responding to it the very best we can with this. I agree that there has to be a time certain to end it, or we can't, the families won't be able to plan, we won't be able to plan. So I like what Mr. Lewis is trying to do to give clarity to this, and I believe that we should give him the time to get that language the way he intends for it to be, because it's hard to do in this manner. But I thank you all for the work you've done in this, and I believe that we really are coming up with something that is going to eliminate the feeling of overcrowding for both schools, which I think is going to be beneficial to all families who attend both of those schools. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byron Connor. At this time, Mr. Lewis.
All right, so I'm prepared to make a motion, and so if we could talk. Yes, sir.
Just for the sake of complete clarity, now that I've heard some of this discussion, I would recommend that we insert at the beginning of this motion, effective for the 21-22 school year.
At the very beginning of the
At the
motion?
very beginning. Now, I realize that Fountain Inn, that's when it opens, but I believe that's necessary for all the clauses that would come after.
Right, so we'll do it one time for practice, and then we'll do it for real. All right. So I believe then it would read, effective 2021-22 school year, comma, and then to reassign all the way down to, and grant priority choice to geocodes listed in Table 3 to attend Malden High School until such time as the school exceeds its rated capacity, currently 2211 FTSE, and shall not resume in subsequent years, period. And then a second sentence would read, the rated capacity shall be established annually by the Planning and Demographics Department. So it puts the clause with the right other clause, and it clarifies that.
And when you make that motion, I'll second it for you.
So I see a lot of people nod their heads, so I'm doing it. All right, so I make a motion.
Substitute motion.
I make a motion to amend this motion to read, effective 2021-22 school year, comma, and then to reassign the geocodes in Table 1 in the attached student assignment plan from Hillcrest to Fountain Inn High School, the geocodes listed in Table 2 from Malden to Fountain Inn High School, the geocodes listed in Table 3 from Malden to Hillcrest High School, and to grant priority choice to the geocodes listed in Table 3 to attend Malden High School until such time as the school exceeds its rated capacity, currently 2,211 FTSE, and shall not resume in subsequent years, period. And then the second sentence would read, rated capacity shall be established annually by the Planning and Demographics Department.
Madam Chairman, I'll second the motion.
So there's amended motion by Mr. Lewis, seconded by Mr. Sailors.
If I could just speak to the motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lewis.
So I just want to clarify, because I know we've talked a lot about choice and priority choice, and I believe that this entire plan is a sound plan. I believe that we need a new high school in Fountain Inn. I believe that it needs to be 2,000 seats today, because I think the growth in Malden and Hillcrest and Simpsonville is going to outstrip what we've already built. All I am proposing with this is just that until Malden High School reaches its rated capacity, and there are choice slots available, that these families just get to move to the front of the line. So it's not forever and ever, because it's going to be full. It doesn't in any way diminish the choice to go to Hillcrest, which is where I actually believe most of these families will be better off. My disappointment isn't that they're not better off, it's that I don't think we've done a good job explaining why they would be better off. And I think your dual credit example, I think the athletics example, I think the improved test scores, I think the feeder pattern from Hillcrest Middle School to Hillcrest High School are all great, sound reasons why these geocodes were chosen. I'm just saying, if a family disagrees with us and they say, no, I like Malden better, and there's space, they should get in before some family in Greenville High says, I want to go to Malden. And so I, in no way am diminishing any of the other plans here. I just want to make sure that if these families believe they know better than we do where they want their kids to go, that we wouldn't take that opportunity from them. So I appreciate the board for taking time for us to work through that.
Mr. Meek?
I just want to make sure I understand and I'm clear on it. This means that if they reach the number by 21, 22, then it stops then. It doesn't have to go to 25, 26, or anywhere in the future, so it's the first available date.
That would be the administration's interpretation of that.
Okay? Now, if the population was to stay level, which nobody thinks that's going to happen, and we have Fountain Inn sitting over there with 500 kids in it, what is the administration's thinking? What will we need to do then?
Awfully difficult to run comprehensive high school with 500 students. You know, our first move would be, how many could we get in there by choice? Assume we couldn't get any in there by choice. We'd have to come back and probably ask the future board to look at the assignment areas again. Now, I think that's not likely to happen based on the kind of support that we got out of the community when we presented this plan to them. Not only did we have, I think really only one or two individuals that had any objection, concern, raised a question about being assigned to Fountain Inn, and in fact we had one whole community that requested to be assigned there that was not included in the original assignment. So hopefully, based on those indicators, I don't think we're going to have that problem, but if we do, you know, we find we have a school there that we can't efficiently run and offer the kind of program we need to run, then we come back to this body and ask to review that. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Meek. Anyone else? Ms. Wells?
So just for further clarity, because we are saying the rated capacity is established annually, it would also be possible that the rated capacity in a given year could be less than 2211 based on a number of factors, be it special needs, special ed.
If you all lowered your high school ratios.
Right, yep, our high school ratios, if we have fewer kids that are going to the Career Center or leaving after half a day as seniors, any of those things could also affect the capacity, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we will look at that every year. So
Yeah.
I guess to Mr. Meek's point, we're saying 2211, but again, that might be up or down in any given year based on what students are choosing to do and what programs are being offered.
That's possible. Of course, our trend right now is for them to be doing more of that rather than less. Now, the other side of that coin is if you do more dual credits, but you do them on your campus as opposed to going off campus, obviously that's going to affect, that's not going to affect the rated capacity, but that's going to affect that, them counting as a full-time student. And that's really what we're trying to get to with using the term rated capacity. We actually got more students in there, but some of them are in there a quarter of the day, some of them are in there half a day. So trying to bring a little more clarity to that. But it's possible all that can change.
Well, yes, because that was the point in the committee of the whole, you know, that we are already maxing out right now our number of Career Center slots So it's not likely that we'll gain space at Malden or Hillcrest because of more kids going to the Career Center. Similarly, if more dual credit classes are offered on campus so that students don't have an access issue, so we have equity there, that might also affect the number of students that we can accommodate.
We do have, too, just as a reminder, we're a little bit behind on it because of transition in leadership in career and technical, and wanting to make sure we get it exactly right. We have that 5th Career Center, Innovation Center planned, which would provide some amount of additional career and technical space. And then one of the things that Mr. Williams and his staff have been looking at is how can we better utilize time at the career centers. Because really right now we're getting about 5 hours a day utilization from a student standpoint instead of 7 hours. And so they're looking at what alternative type schedules might lend themselves to increasing the time available for students to be in there. So but there's always offsets. This might happen or that might happen. You know, we're trying to do as best we can do to make an educated guess kind of based on our most recent past trends and as best we can do prognosticate for the future based on those recent trends.
And I appreciate that that's something that annually you're looking at that to see how it needs to be established, working with
Yes,
the
ma'am.
administration. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sabat.
Malden is 2,211 students, and Hillcrest, give me just a minute, Hillcrest is currently 2,140 students, full-time equivalent students.
Malden is 2,211, Ms. Rowley,
Yes, sir.
and Hillcrest is 2,000.
2,140 full-time equivalent students.
Will that equivalency rise next year for Malden and Hillcrest? My question is, can we go above 2,211?
Only if we have more students who aren't there all day. I mean, we have more students in there than 2211, but they're not there all day. So we use that term full-time equivalency.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
question, is the administration okay with this amendment?
Yes, sir. This removes any concern the administration had about an end date certain, and we're good with it. I believe it accomplishes what we all sought to accomplish with the original recommended motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Stokes, would you please read the motion, the amended motion?
Effective for the 2021-22 school year, to reassign the geocodes in Table 1 in the attached student assignment plan from Hillcrest High School to Fountain Inn High School. The geocodes listed in Table 2 from Malden High School to Fountain Inn High School, and the geocodes listed in Table 3 from Malden High School to Hillcrest High School. And to grant priority choice to the geocodes listed in Table 3 to attend Malden High School until such time as the school exceeds its rated capacity, currently 2211 FTSEs, and shall not resume in subsequent years. The rated capacity shall be established annually by the Planning and Demographics Department.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, that's the actual motion that we're trying to get to with the amendment. That's not the actual, that's
Not the actual, but we are going to vote on the amended motion.
No, we're voting on the amendment first, and then we'll vote on the
Right.
motion as
The
amended,
amended motion.
which is what I'm saying.
This is the amendment.
What you're asking us to vote on is the motion, not an amendment. So, am I not correct, Mr. Lewis?
You are.
If I could clarify, Ms. Stokes just read the motion as amended by Mr. Lewis's motion to amend.
Right. This is what we're voting on.
That's correct.
No.
A motion to amend. Okay? All right. Thank you, Mr. Webb. All those in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries. With the amended motion, the motion amended is approved. And now we will vote on the motion as amended. Okay? All those in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. At this time, okay, 5.03, innovative course approvals. Recommended motion from the committee of the whole is to approve the local board courses, Health Science 1 Honors PDF, 6,896 KB, and Sports Medicine 1 Honors PDF, 6,530 KB. Orchestra 2 Honors PDF, 3,889 KB. Coming from the committee, it needs no second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 5.04, student discipline appeal. The recommended motion from the administration to affirm the decision of the hearing officer and deny the appeal. Yes, sir.
Make a motion to affirm the decision of the hearing officer and deny the appeal.
Second.
And there's a second by Mr. Sailors. Any discussion? All in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. 505, audit of cash receipting and account receivables. Recommended motion from Internal Auditor Services to accept the audit of cash receipting and accounts receivable. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This audit was performed to determine if cash check handling procedures are being followed properly, to ensure that funds received are correctly coded to the general ledger, to verify that funds received from outside vendors were properly recorded and deposited, and to assess the adequacy of internal controls for cash receipting and accounts receivable processes. This report consists of one observation and represented a minor procedural omission of not initialing the bank deposit slip. This step is performed to confirm that the amounts recorded on the cash and check log, the cash batch report, and the deposit agree. Overall, this is a very good report, and it appears that the new procedures for handling cash and checks received are working well. That concludes my presentation, Madam Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Sailors.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the audit of the cash receipting and accounts receivable audit.
Second.
Second by Ms. Wells. Any discussion? Mr. Meek.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Barber, if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying out of the deposits that you looked at, over 20% of them did not have the financial officer or the accounting specialist, whoever it was, initials, that they looked at it.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Can you, doing accounting principles, would you say that's 20% of all deposits in the district?
That was just the sample that we selected.
But normally, is that about correct for the whole district, if you do a random sample?
That's certainly possible, but it's not, I couldn't necessarily guarantee it. But what I will say is all the amounts were the same, so simply just forgot to initial the bank deposit, validated deposit slip, but all the amounts matched. So it was simply the omitting of actually initialing that deposit, which confirmed that all those three documents agreed.
But is that not part of the check and balance?
Yes, sir.
So that should be done.
That's correct.
Mr. Superintendent, why wasn't it done?
The only answer I can give you is a human error. They neglected to do so. I would call your attention to the fact that 5 people in finance are involved in that process. One of those 5 failed on 8 occasions to do what they were supposed to do as initially. That's been addressed.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions for the motion, all those in favor, please address by raising your right hand. All opposed? Mr. Meek opposed, everyone else was in favor, the motion carries. Moving on to 6.01.
Motion passed. Don't say who didn't vote for it.
Miss, Internal Auditing Services Report, Status Report, Mr. Barber.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're presenting our monthly status report of the projects that we're currently working on, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Barber? Hearing no questions, this was information only, so thank you, Mr. Barber. That completes the Internal Auditors Auditing Services Project Status Report, and we will move on to 7.01 Committee Liaisons Report. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Advocacy Committee had their, annual legislative meeting with the Greenville Legislative Delegation. We had a great participation from the boards. I thank you to all the board members who almost made it an entire day hanging out with us. Thank you to the staff who helped put that event together at J.L. Mann, and I think we had 10 of our legislative delegation members there. I thought it was a really good discussion. We went through all of our resolutions. Most of them we handed out to them because of time. We didn't have the time to go through each of them. But I will say that, particularly around the idea of allowing districts the opportunity to opt out of tests, there was real aha moments among members of our legislative delegation about the difference between the Read to Succeed Act mandating that an assessment be administered and the fact that the school district has been required to do the kindergarten readiness assessment. And 2 of the education delegation members came to me afterwards and said they had never considered that to be our objection. So I think these conversations are really helpful. I think Senator Turner provided a lot of information about what's coming down the pipe, and the thing that I think is really important, particularly for those of you who are interested in education policy, is there's a lot to be done in South Carolina around education policy, and I don't think it's all going to get done before March. And so one of the things that Senator Turner really cautioned us to remain aware of is that a lot of these ed reform work, including education funding and the Senate 419 and the disbanding of the EOC, all are going to be done in smaller chunks over multiple years. They don't see those things all getting accomplished by March. So I think that gives us a lot of opportunity to take our time and work through that with the delegation. So thanks to everybody who was a part of that.
Mr. Lewis, I know you attended a conference. Would you like to give us an update?
I've spent a lot of everybody's time tonight, so I'll only say that I went to NFSED and it was an incredible experience. And visiting Topeka, where Brown versus the Board of Education really originated, and just being a part of a place that is really struggling and dealing with how do we appropriately recognize that our community was built on very separate schools and are now trying to coordinate, really to coordinate integration for now 5, 6, 7 decades, and are still working through these issues, which is really incredible what that community is working on, and really gives me some real sense of encouragement about what this community is also struggling with. And I appreciate the opportunity to attend.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Is there anyone else that would like to give a report on a committee or conference or anything?
I would just like for Derek to tell everybody what enough said is, since
Enough
no
said.
no one will know what that acronym is.
I thought we were trying to make him be quiet. Enough said.
Enough
So
said.
so does the National Federation of Urban and Suburban School Districts, although I will say that it is entirely inappropriately named because the U comes after the F, so it should be Nefused, and it is mispronounced, I believe, intentionally to confuse people.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Sure, we won't have to take an amended motion on that one. With that being said, we will move on to financial report 8.01. Dr. Royster.
Because of it as well, so I don't believe Ms. Stack has a formal report tonight, but answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions? Hearing none, yes, sir.
Before we adjourn, could I ask Mr. Barber a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, when are you going to go back and do a re-audit of the cash receipt and accounts receivable, Mr. Barber? When do you follow up on that?
Follow up on that?
Yes, sir.
We give them an opportunity to correct the errors, and then we go back and take a look at,
When will that be?
I mean, we can look at that. If
Okay.
we need to look at it right away, we certainly can.
No, I just want you to double check, make sure somebody's following through with that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd also like for the records to reflect that Mr. Shanley is out. He had an accident and may require surgery on his shoulder and his arm. And so he was unable to attend because of the pain that he is experiencing. So he wanted everyone to know that that's the reason he is not here
You had to
tonight.
sit here in pain tonight.
Sir?
We had to sit here in pain tonight.
Well, students, confirm.
Should I go?
There's a motion, there's a second by Mr. Sailors. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and y'all have a nice evening and safe travels home.
That's who's up to.